Now what we're going to do is reassemble the gun, put the gun back together, and I'm going to try to point out things to look for in putting the components back to the gun, back into the gun. All right. We're going to start with the gun block. All right, and just to make sure that all my ports are clear from any kind of contaminants. Okay, isocyanate, any kind of particles or solid material. Okay, there's a lot of ports in here that are very hard to see, and there's a drill bit kit in here that will size all the holes in my block. Okay, I want to check to make sure that my passageway through my check valve is clear. Visually see that my area for my screen screw, as well as the port from the screen screw to my ISO closure port. Okay, and then from my closure port going into the mixing area of my gun. Okay, that's my ISO side. My polyol side would be to run the drill bit all the way up into the block, and it will come to this area here. Okay, there's a plug here. My plug is a clean out port. Okay, if I had any kind of contaminants into this clean out port of my resin side, I'd have to remove that plug to drill in this way. And of course, anytime you use these drills, you do not want to put them into an electric drill. These are all to be hand drilled. Okay, and then from my clean out port, I want to make sure from my closure port it goes to the mixing area, is cleaned out. Okay, once I confirm that the block is clean of any kind of contaminants, I want to start by installing my rear retainer seal. Okay, I'll thread in my rear retainer. It's a good time to tighten the rear retainer right now, because when I have my adjustment screw on top, you're not going to be able to fit your wrench onto it. So this is a good time. You want this nice and tight and snug, okay? Because right here is a metal-to-metal seal, all right? You want to make sure that that's not leaking. Very tight, all right? Now what you have is your rear retainer seal, okay? This is a lip seal, all right? You have the spring on the inside holding the material into the gun block, okay? So what I like to do is probably line it up on my valving rod and push it in. All right? Once I have it in position, I would thread my rear retainer screw on so it doesn't pop out and it stays in position. I don't have to tighten this all the way down. I just want to just to make sure that that rear retainer stays straight inside my rear retainer case. Okay. The next step would be to mount the gun onto my cylinder. My Allen wrench. Tighten them nice and snug. Now set up my valving rod. Okay. What I want to do is I want to make sure that my spacer is threaded all the way up to the top of my valving rod sleeve. All right. I want to thread the sleeve on all the way until it bottoms out. Okay. Once it bottoms out, I want to make sure I have at least a 1/16 of an inch gap here so I could tighten my jam nut down hold my valving rod and make sure it's snug. You don't have to over tighten this, just nice and snug. That's it. Now what I want to do is insert my valving rod into the cylinder, and what I want to do is locate the slot on this valving rod holder and to push it through a guide pin, a roll pin inside the cylinder, okay? What this is going to do is prevent it from coming out and popping out of here once you put air to the gun. Okay, so what I want to do is find that roll pin, rotate it 180 degrees away from the roll pin, that slot. Once that's in, I want to put my rear retainer back on. Okay. Now I'm ready to put the rear impinger in. Okay. Things to look for on this rear impinger: you want to make sure that you don't have any kind of buildup or material that's built up here. This is my seating area, okay? This is a critical area. This is the area that seats against my valving rod. So I want to make sure that's clear and clean of any kind of debris. I want to check the slots of my impinger, make sure they're all free of any kind of debris, and tighten it into my throat. Thread it in. Take my throat wrench, set it in my throat wrench, and we have an impinger tool. Find the flats on the impinger tool and just tighten it by hand. You don't need to tighten this down any tighter than with this tool. Okay? It's always important to make sure you know which impinger you put into your gun. This is a 58 or I'm sorry, a 58 C1C. Once I have that tightened into the throat, I would trigger the gun in the open position. Hold the gun in the open position. And then tighten my impinger in. The reason why I want to extract the valving rod is because I do not want to rotate or tighten the impinger into the gun, because it could leave marks or lines into my valving rod and destroy the life of the valving rod. I want to then put in my closure. Screw. And my check valves. If you notice, the two check valves one has a notch in it and one is plain. All right, the plain one is designed for the B side, and the notched one is for the ISO side. This is the reason because we don't want to mix and match these check valves for contamination reasons. Okay. Once you set them in, install your gaskets. I want to install the screen screw. Tighten it. And my ISO closure port. This also has notches in it. Okay.